I want to make it very clear, it's not union members who are bad. Union members, please hear this clearly. The union bosses from the beginning, however, have had an agenda far different than the typical American blue-collar union worker. Union members, you are not racist, revolutionaries, or communists. Maybe some are, but you know what? Some non-union members are as well. But your dues and your fees and your willingness not to recognize who your unions have been from the beginning are empowering communist, racist, and those who will be responsible for destroying our country and then monopolizing, coming in and using those events to gain even more power. You've been given a history full of half-truths, kernels of truth, or out-and-out lies. You must restore history to understand the future. The racism of labor unions. I want you to, don't take anything that I say as fact. Don't take my word for it. Do your own homework. It's all there. Some of the stuff we're going to show you tonight, we got from the union website. I believe in the American worker. But the labor unions keep their worker quiet by giving them insane pensions. And everybody, it's normal. You go, ah. There is an uncomfortable history, but because of this uncomfortable history, it becomes an uncomfortable future in times of trouble. The people at the top have not changed. Let me take you back to this. I'd love to show you a video, but I can't. It is the Panic of 1873. A European depression hit American shores. A major U.S. investment bank failed. Credit dried up, foreclosures increased, banks failed as economic depression swept across the country. The banking house, Jay Cooke and Company, the major backer of the Northern Pacific Railroad, failed. So, factories closed. Thousands of workers lost their job. Unemployment grew. So did the antagonism between labor and business leaders. Flash forward now to 1877. This is in San Francisco. Unemployment in the city hovered around 20%. See if you think any of these possibilities could happen in the future. Discontent among the jobless grew, as did support of the labor movement. It was associated with the Marxist International Association of Working Men. Thousands of disgruntled workers gathered in their sandlot near City Hall, where they denounced capitalists, the newly rich, and their favorite scapegoat, the Chinese workers. In July, striking railroad workers in Pittsburgh did this. This one was in Baltimore. This one was in Chicago. This one was in West Virginia. They clashed with militia and deadly results all across the country. In San Francisco, a meeting was held in support of those striking workers. Here it is. California Working Man's Party was born in racism, because they found their success in the slogan, "The Chinese must go." Labor leader Dennis Kearney incited anti-Chinese sentiments and hit on workers' anxiety, saying, quote, "We intend to try and vote the Chinaman out, to frighten him out, and if this won't do it, to kill him out. The heathen slaves must leave this coast." The unions had shown their racist bent before. One of the first union labels. Remember I said, look for the union label. Here's one of the first ones. This one is for cigars. The cigar was made by white men. This proclamation spelled it out. The labor wanted the Chinese out, and they were successful. Thanks to the efforts of the Labor Party, 1880, California banned the importation and use of Chinese labor. Congress did the same thing with the Exclusion Act of 1882, stopping all Chinese immigration for 10 years. But it was renewed and modified so many times. The policy actually remained in place until 1943 and was not completely dropped until the 1960s. When they weren't racist. How about when they were just threatening? You remember when I showed you this a few weeks ago? This is SEIU. SEIU protesters on the lawn of a Bank of America employee. He was not there, but his teenage son was home and terrified. Let me take you back again to San Francisco and 1877. This guy. Okay, remember this? 1877. This is the same scene, except it's in picture form because they didn't have a video camera. Labor leader Dennis Kearney and his cronies, they went to the wealthy neighborhoods in San Francisco and told at least one meeting, quote, "A little judicious hanging right now, here and now, would be the best course to pursue with the capitalists and the stock sharps who are all threatening time to rob us." Yet in another meeting, he warned the railroad owners to fire all Chinese laborers. Remember Judge Lynch. That's the labor union. It's the same thing. History repeats itself unless you understand history and you stop it. More in a second. Labor unions have had a long and storied history. I showed you this from a cigar label, Cigar Union, whites only. They'll have you believe that unions are about the little guy, and always have been, the poor, the minority. And interestingly, these American unions aren't even necessarily about being American anymore. They're for the little guys now all over the world. Legal, illegal, it doesn't matter. Here is SEIU's Alicio Medina. Here's what he said.
In our membership are Eastern Europeans, Irish, Polish, Indians, Chinese. The whole world is represented among the undocumented and also in our membership. We also represent American-born workers, legal residents.
Okay. Remember, he's using race here. Remember, the cigar made by whites only. The labor unions thought that that was the best way to drive up membership, to appeal to whites and make Asians and the blacks the enemies. So now who do they have to pin the blame on, the problems that we have now? Well, I don't know. Could it be you? Here's another clip of union leadership, this one from SEIU, Executive VP Gary Hudson. Here he is pitting black union members against their white union members face to face. Here he is.
I think we got some real problems. I spent a lot of time in Wisconsin and places like that where I have heard some of the most anti-immigrant sentiments around. It's also, and this is where you get the black workers first, it's so rabidly racist. Yeah. Till black people get scared. It's like, you know, they don't just mean you. Right. And so you can organize them quicker and like, look at what's there.
Got it? So they can use the Hispanic, the plight of the undocumented alien, the illegal American or illegal alien, and they can use that to organize the blacks. It's a different kind of racist, but it's still a racist. So where does all of this come from? Again, let me give you the history. For most of the first century, American unions promoted affirmative action, except it was for white workers. Trade unions were job monopolies, and most often white job monopolies. California unions, for example, led the campaign against the Chinese immigrant labor. The label of look for the union label, that campaign helped enable consumers to boycott products made by the Chinese workers. Let me go back to this slogan. I remember this as a kid, growing up. Watch. Again, that came from look for the union label. You'll know the Chinese didn't make them. That was the root of this. Then, of course, the cigar cases. I don't know if you can even see this. The cigar cases. Look at this. Here's people kicking the Chinamen out. Here is a cigar beating the Chinese cigar up. I mean, these boxes say the cigars contained within are made by white men. That was the original union label. As for East Coast immigrant labor, the celebrated socialist leader Eugene V. Debs once complained, "The Dago works for small pay and lives far more like a savage or wild beast than the Chinese," end quote. Beautiful. I'm sure he meant that with love and respect. Above all, unions made it difficult for blacks to earn a living. The first large union federation, the National Labor Union, set the pattern of exclusion and evasion. Although it was broadly known that national and local unions excluded blacks either by their constitutions or just informal custom, the Federation claimed that since the Constitution made no reference to the race issue, we didn't have to deal with it.